Hello everyone, I'm Alana and welcome back to our channel. Why United States is so big? Yes, the US got most of its land after it became free in 1776. After becoming independent, the United States may have bought the most land. I am going to tell you how they did it. It's about strategic moves, dramatic deals, and a relentless push towards the West. So why did the United States expand? And how did these acquisitions shape the nation? Let's roll back the clock and find out. After declaring independence in 1776, the fledgling United States looked nothing like the powerhouse it is today. The original 13 colonies hugged the Atlantic coast, cramped and confined. The 13 American colonies broke their political ties to Great Britain on July 4, 1776, when the Continental Congress approved the Declaration of Independence. They eyed the expansive and mysterious lands to the west with a mix of fear and fascination. It quickly became apparent that if the United States was going to survive and thrive, it needed more room to grow. So how did they start? Well, with a deal too good to pass up. And the American colonists were able to formalize their connection with the French government and secure French support for their struggle against Great Britain by announcing their independence. Jefferson sent his men to Paris to buy the port of New Orleans. He thought that New Orleans was very important. He thought that whoever owned it would be America's natural enemy because they would control the route that goods from more than a third of the U.S. had to take to get to other countries. That's essentially what happened with the Louisiana Purchase in 1803. The U.S. struck a deal with France and acquired a vast expanse of territory that stretched from the Gulf of Mexico all the way to the Rocky Mountains and doubled the size of the nation. The Louisiana Territory was bought by President Thomas Jefferson almost a year before for about $15 million, which is about $342 million today after inflation. The event happened in St. Louis, Missouri, which is why the city is known as the Gateway to the West. The treaty added land that is now the states of Louisiana, Arkansas, Missouri, Iowa, Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, North Dakota, South Dakota, and parts of Minnesota, New Mexico, Montana, Wyoming, and Colorado. As a result, the country doubled in size. By 1819, the United States had set its sights on Florida, a lush territory ruled by Spain, but marred by instability and conflict. Spain failed in its efforts to bring people to Florida, and by 1800, if the United States took over Florida, it would also take over the Mississippi River. That trade line was very important. Andrew Jackson came into Spanish Florida from 1817 to 1818, struck a number of important spots, and pushed the Seminoles farther south into Florida. On the other side, the British took over Spanish Cuba and the Philippines during the 7 Years' War, also known as the French and Indian War. Spain had to give up Florida in order to get these important islands back. After that, the U.S. took control of Florida, but only so that Georgia could have legal government and management, not so that the U.S. could completely take over the land. Adams said that the United States had to. Instead of becoming more Spanish, the two Floridas became more and more American. Finally, Spain officially gave Florida to the United States in 1821, following the rules of the Adams-Onis Treaty. This acquisition not only expanded the southern boundary of the U.S., but also gave it strategic ports in the Gulf of Mexico, crucial for both military and trade purposes. Texas is a territory teeming with potential and rebels. Texas declared its independence from Mexico in 1836. Seeing a golden opportunity, the U.S. annexed Texas in 1845. This move was not without controversy and led directly to the Mexican-American War. Through this conflict, not only was Texas secured firmly within American hands, as soon as it became independent, it tried to join the U.S., but because of disagreements over slavery, the process took almost 10 years. Texas joined the country as a slave-owning state, but 15 years later, it broke away as a part of the Confederate States of America. When Tyler and Texas signed the treaty on April 12, 1844, it was meant to bring Texas into the Union as a territory, which is how the Constitution works. In other words, Texas would give up all of its public lands to the U.S., and the U.S. would take over all of Texas's guaranteed debt, which was up to $10 million. When Texas was added to the U.S. as a state, it brought many benefits to the country. When it came to making cotton, beef, and oil, it became an economic giant. Plus, the U.S. also stretched its territory further west, shaping the future contours of the country. On June 15, 1846, the Washington, D.C. and the United Kingdom signed the Oregon Treaty, ending their joint occupation of the Oregon Territory. This treaty extended the U.S. boundary to the Pacific Northwest, up to what is now the Canadian border. The treaty ended the Oregon border debate by settling the American and British claims to the Oregon Country. Since the Treaty of 1818, both the U.S. and Britain had been living in the area together. After living together in the Pacific Northwest for 28 years, they signed the Treaty of Oregon on 1846. The 49th line was set as the border between the two countries by the treaty. As part of the Oregon Treaty, no money was given. The lush, rain-soaked lands of Oregon added rich resources and vital ports on the Pacific Ocean, crucial for trade with Asia. The appetite for expansion continued as the U.S. engaged in a contentious war with Mexico. An argument over the Nueces Strip marked the start of the Mexican-American War. Mexico didn't see Texas as real American land, and when Texas joined the U.S., it made Mexican leaders and people angry. The U.S. and Mexico signed the Gadsden Purchase Treaty in 1854. It said that the U.S. would pay Mexico $10 million for a 29,670 square mile area. The Gadsden Purchase gave the Southern Transcontinental Railroad the land it needed and tried to end the fighting. The victory not only reaffirmed control over Texas, but also led to the acquisition of what are now California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, and parts of Colorado and New Mexico. The idea of manifest destiny, which was popular at the time, also pushed the government to add more land. The Americans were afraid that England would try to set up a base in the Alaska. They also thought that getting Alaska would help the U.S. become a major power in the Pacific. In 1859, Russia offered to sell Alaska to the U.S. because they thought the U.S. would stop Great Britain, who was Russia's biggest enemy in the Pacific. In 1867, Secretary of State William Seward saw an opportunity in the cold, remote territory of Alaska, purchased from Russia for only $7.2 million. This land later proved to be a treasure trove of resources, from oil to gold, and significantly increased America's geopolitical presence in the Arctic. Congress and the press made fun of the Alaskan buy, even though it was a good deal at about 2 cents an acre. They called it Seward's Folly, Seward's Icebox, and President Andrew Johnson's Polar Bear Garden. The last major territorial acquisition was the picturesque Hawaiian Islands. During most of the 1800s, people in charge in Washington were worried that Hawaii could join the power of a European country. But native Hawaiians and other non-white Hawaiian people started to push for Hawaii to become a state. These people wanted the same rights as people who live in one of the 48 states and are U.S. citizens. They wanted a voice in Congress and the power to choose their own governor and judges, who were currently chosen by the sovereign kingdom. The United States was interested in Hawaii for both economic and military reasons. Queen Lydia gave up her power and asked the U.S. government to undo the actions of its representatives to stop the fighting. Hawaii was annexed by the United States in 1898, providing not only a paradise for Americans to relax, but also a strategic naval base in the Pacific, marking America's emergence as a global power. Each acquisition, each new state, added a layer to the complex identity of the country. The vastness of the United States today is a testament to a historical legacy of ambition and strategy, mixed with a pursuit of resources and security. What do you think about these monumental moments in American history? Were they merely strategic successes, or do they reflect something deeper about the American spirit? Drop your thoughts below, and let's keep this conversation going. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click that bell icon to stay updated on our journey through history. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.